I've been really focusing on just trying to control what I can control because, I know that I'm talented. I've proven to myself that I'm talented more than I've proven to anyone else, more than, what any fans might say, even more than what my parents might say. It all stems from a belief in yourself.
Welcome back, or welcome to Y Option. I'm your host, Yogi Roth, and today we're coming to you from East Lansing. That's right, Y Option is still in the background, but you see that green underneath me here in Jonathan Smith's new dojo in their facility. Watch them practice. Our guest today is a wideout that would thrive in any system, and I think he's going to thrive in Lincoln Riley's system. It's Duce Robinson, two-sport athlete, huge recruit. I think he's having a monster season for the USC Trojans at wide receiver. Let's bring in Jim Thornby. Jim, we've had some news that's happened early this week. We got some quarterback announcement to break down, and of course, we'll talk a little bit about Duce. But what's going on in the world of college football?
Yeah, well, it's funny with you being in Michigan State. Former Spartan Sam Levitt on Monday was named the ASU starting quarterback. So as the transfer portal wheel still keeps turning on there. Also on Monday. Probably the biggest, news, although it's always just kind of more fodder for conversation than anything else, was the preseason All-American team came out. It was good to see T-Mac on the first team getting the kudos he deserved. Travis Hunter, again, no surprise that he's on the first team there. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of conversation about Shedeur not making either the first or second team. Carson Beck getting the first team quarterback and Dylan Gabriel the second team. Oh. But again, this is kind of what that whole thing does. Is just kind of churn and churn and churn. I mean, at the end of the day, what you do on the field is going to determine what what you get at the end of the year. And and I'm guessing the people who are doing this, winning probably had something to do with that. There's definitely nothing away from Shedeur, who's obviously, a crazy talented quarterback. But when you're 4-8, you're 4-8.
Can't hide that, bro.
Yeah. And that's the thing about Colorado. It's no matter what, they become an immense story every day with every little thing that happens, just because of, of the Dion factor, just the magnet that he is for everything. But obviously Dylan Gabriel, has proved it on the field for several years, and has won games. Carson Beck with Georgia, obviously they're always winning games. So I think right now in the preseason, I think that's fair to put the two of those guys ahead of him, and then we'll see what happens, come December.
Yeah. No doubt. We have this debate every year. I can remember when it was Jared Goff versus Carson Wentz, or Marcus versus Jameis Winston, or Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud, two kids coming out of the West Coast. It's okay to have a couple that are really good. Look at the draft last year.
Yeah.
It's okay to be Drake May and J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, all drafted really high and all made ridiculous signing bonus. I was watching Hard Knocks and I'm like, it was Caleb Williams. And if you go up for the Bears and you're like, Caleb Williams, first round pick, signing bonus. What do you say? 36 million or something
yeah.
bonkers, it's okay if you're not on somebody's All-American preseason list.
Yeah.
And I'll take it a step further. If that is your motivation, I'm telling you, from my lens of doing this for a long time, that dries out. Now, a couple special unicorns where it doesn't dry out. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Name another one, though. Name another one. Where at some point you have to prove yourself right versus proving people wrong. Earlier in this week, and I'm going to go through some of these numbers because I'm on a little high horse about it, Jim. We saw former USC quarterback, former, I believe, at Los Alamitos High School quarterback in Southern California, Malachi Nelson, who transferred to Boise State, gets beat out for the quarterback job. And the world goes nuts. My phone blows up. Can you believe that he didn't win the job? Part of me says, yeah, it's surprising, because when a huge quarterback transfers to a group of 5 school, you're thinking they're definitely going to start. That's probably part of the deal in terms of why they went there. He doesn't win the job, and Maddox Madsen gets named the starter. Well, nobody in the world is talking about Maddox Madsen. Well, to give you some context, he beat out a guy last year who left Boise State, who's now starting in the SEC, and he most recently beat out a player who was the number 1 player, on a bunch of lists nationally coming out of high school. What is the point? That, number 1, it's the most developmental position in the world. Number 2, rankings don't always get it right. And number 3, you don't always have to play from jump. Everybody develops at different rates. So I go to the numbers. So what do you mean, Yogi? Well, he's a 5-star quarterback. How come he's not playing? They're supposed to be locks. Well, let's go to the numbers. And if you need help, go to 5starqb.com or read the book, 5-Star QB, Jim. 140 quarterbacks in the history of recruiting were named 5 stars. And the 5-star general definition is you are going to change the face of a franchise, meaning you're going to win a natty, you're going to win a Super Bowl. Well, only 1 quarterback out of the 140 have ever won a Super Bowl. It was Matthew Stafford, year 13, team 2. It doesn't always work. Out of those 140, only 20 were ever drafted in the first round. Only 7 were number 1 overall picks. And those 7 were absolute monsters. Let me give you the names just so I don't screw it up. Some of those absolute monsters were Matthew Stafford, Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams. All known as guys you just have to say either the first or last part of their name, and they're a household name. So it just doesn't happen. Over 60% of 5-star quarterbacks transfer once. Almost 20% are transferring twice, and that number, as we know, is only going to grow. So, to whatever quarterback battle suits your fancy, I just ask the fans to just pause, look at context, and say it's the most developmental position in the world. And unless you're one of those 7 monsters that I just ripped off, or one of the 20 that were drafted in the first round of 140, you're likely going to have to develop a lot. And even if you are one of those 20 in the first round, you're going to have to develop. I love Jane Daniels out of high school, and I was on an island for the most part among quarterback experts, Jim. And what happened when he left Arizona State? People on huge platforms like ESPN were destroying the kid. But what did he do? Proved himself right, won the Heisman, top 5 pick, crush it for the Commanders. So there's just a lot of layers to it. So I just say pause. Like, will Malachi Nelson start at Boise State someday? I think he will. He's got 3 years left of college. Let my man just develop. That's it. That's my rant.
And to your point, I mean, you look at, those guys that went in the first round of the draft this year. Caleb Williams transferred. Jaden Daniels transferred. Michael Penix transferred. Bo Nix transferred. I mean, they all, looked for, a new opportunity. Obviously, Caleb's was probably a little bit different than the other guys because, he was it seemed like his was more, tied with wanting to play with Lincoln. But the other 3 guys, like, it wasn't working exactly the way that they wanted it to, and they found better situations for themselves.
Yeah, and all of those guys played. Like, you got to go play. Like, I just had this debate with the guys on the Big Ten Network where we had a huge quarterback debate that, will air at some point this week. And it was like, if my son or your sons were big-time recruits in quarterback, there's a world where I would advise them to go somewhere to go play. Go to UAB. Go to North Texas. Go to Boise State. Go to a place where you think you can get on the field early. Go to San Jose State. And then go command your dollar versus go to a place where you're going to have to sit and develop. Because there is a world now, if you're a blue blood program, do you need to wait? So here's my theory on Miller Moss, who I'm all in on, always have been. But if he doesn't play in their bowl game and throw a 44-yard strike to Duce Robinson, who's our guest today on the podcast, does USC feel confident enough in him because he did it on that stage? If he doesn't play in that game, who knows? Let's look at Ty Thompson.
Yeah,
he doesn't play in the Fiesta Bowl.
To your point, like if Caleb decided, you know what, I'm going to play the bowl game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that happened at Oregon. That's Ty Thompson.
And everybody crushed Caleb for not playing and being on the sideline there and supporting his teammates.
You're right. So look at Bo. Bo plays and balls in the Fiesta Bowl. Ty Thompson doesn't play. So he's still a little bit of a question mark. He sat, developed, learned. But some of these places can say, I think it is, but I don't really know. Then you go with the known, which is a guy who may have the most starts in the history of the world, formerly on this podcast, and Dylan Gabriel. So it's just a fluid dance. So just urging people amid all the changes in college football that are happening or the announcements that are happening, sit tight, let it play out. Let's talk about USC for a second and our guest, Duce Robinson. At the Elite 11, which you went to this summer, he came as a wide receiver 4 years ago. I've never seen anybody dominate the way he did that night. We thought he was in college. And I was like, this guy must play somewhere in the South or in the East or the Midwest. And he's like, nah, I'm heading into my junior year of high school. Whoa. He is going to be that guy again this year. The second year group of players at USC are the foundation, and what I continue to keep calling a foundational year for the Trojans. Kai Lemon, Zachariah Branch, Jacoby Lane. Those four are going to be the lead dogs at wideout, and they've got some more depth. They got a guy in Miller who can deal. And most importantly, the guys that have been in this system now for at least 2 years, I just think they're going to allow this team to be better than people think. Finishing up my Big Ten tour, Michigan State, Michigan, I think USC is in the conversation around the top third of the Big Ten. They might be in the bottom of the top third, but they're in the top third from the teams that I have seen, Jim. And I think that this receiving core is going to be really hard to stop. How do you stop them? You get home, you win with your front. That's Michigan, that's Ohio State, that's Penn State. Their fronts are really elite. But if SC can hold up enough, Duce Robinson and company are about to go off. To that point, I'm such a fan of him because he spends time with kids. He spends time with people that dream about being him. He did it with my own flag football team over the summer. And he's got a humility about him that you will hear in our interview that is so unique. And I think it's going to be a reason why we see him become one of the leaders within this program. So that's our quarterback dialogue. And on behalf of our partner, 76, our founding partner, 76, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Duce Robinson, filmed earlier this offseason at the Elite 11.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about being a multi-sport athlete.
Yes,
We've talked about that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're in a really unique time in sport where young athletes, they've always sought advice from mentors, role models,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also, I think, very early going down the road of one sport, one track mind. And here you are, you kind of played everything growing up, and now you're playing at the highest level in college football and on the baseball team. So I guess, what are your thoughts on that, and what led you to not get caught up in the, I should only play one thing and thrive at that?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a multi-layered question. I'll start with, so I think for sure a lot of kids are specializing too early. That's just my personal opinion. I think there's this new wave of thinking that if you specialize, if you just go to one sport very early, you're gonna become really, really good at that sport. I feel like a lot of kids are seeking offers. They're so worried about college so early as well that they feel the need or they feel the pressure to succeed in this sport really early. But in my personal opinion, I think playing multiple sports has helped change my life for the better. I think if I had tried to specialize in one sport early, I'm not sure if I would be sitting here with you right now. I think there's so much carryover between sports, between any sport. You could, like in my case, it's football, baseball, but football, basketball, baseball, basketball, soccer, swimming, any sort of sport, it's just, there's so many different skills and so many different lessons that each sport in its own respective right can teach you and could even help you, in a different sport. And so, I think a lot of kids are just learning or are losing out on, some of those abilities or lessons that you might have learned if you had played multiple sports growing up. And I also think, in my opinion, if I played just one sport for too long, I think burnout's it's a real thing in this world. I've grown up with kids who have been uber talented, but they're just, whether it be parents or whether it just be, feeling the pressure of playing and having to do well in a sport, you know, I think they get burnt out of that sport. And, you know, I think if you're playing multiple sports, you know, it gives you something you can check out of one sport and still be, you know, finding joy in another sport. So that's my personal thoughts on that.
Oh, it's beautiful because if you think about, like, I mean, I grew up a long time ago, right? In my early 40s. And here you are, not even in your 20s probably, right? Mm-hmm. And we played a spring sport, a winter sport, a fall sport, and then you did something in the summer. You played pretty much everything. But what it did is it allowed you to, you know, that flame by the end of the season maybe was low, but by the time you came back around, it was roaring.
Absolutely.
So I think the ability and the agility around that, of course, is beneficial. How about the neuro-agility? Like, how about your brain? Like, what do you think it's done for you in that regard of sighting a baseball, having to deal with a curveball, having to deal with playing a wideout, like all of the things that your brain had to deal with as a thinker, as an athlete?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think just, you know, your cognitive function improves playing multiple sports, right? Like, I can say very confidently through playing baseball, my hand-eye coordination it's improved exponentially, and that's been able to carry over into football, you know, whether it be tracking the football, you know, and then football, you have to be very athletic. You're going to succeed in football if you're an athletic person. Baseball, it's the same thing. Like, the more athletic you are in baseball, I believe the better you could be.
I think it allows you to have this ability to have a different type of confidence.
For sure.
You know, like, and you can go get a rebound. Like, it's the same thing when you throw the ball or a jump ball in the end zone. Mm-hmm. Right? It's the same thing when you're running a dig route behind a linebacker or dropping safety, and you got to sight at the last second, kind of like a knuckleball or a knuckle curve or something like that. And I just imagine, I've talked to some other wideouts about that. We've shared that with even the guy I play with, Larry Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. He loves shagging flies with Minnesota and Kirby Puckett and company. And I just think that his ability to sight the ball was so greater than so many others because of baseball. And now I don't think anybody's really playing baseball. Like, you're one of the few guys that I even know that played high school baseball, but you can sight it so well. And I just think it's like a hidden talent almost that nobody really knows, and it is a weapon for you as an athlete.
For sure, 100%. And so, yeah, you know, I think there's so many skills that you can learn in different sports that, like I said, they have carryover into other sports, and I think it's helped me as an athlete, you know.
So let's talk about you as an athlete, because, you know, people know your dad, of course, and you're around sports a lot. When did it click for you that you're like, I got a chance to be pretty good at these things?
It's funny because, you know, going into high school, I had never played football before. You know, I had always grown up playing flag football and 7-on-7, but I never, like, going into my freshman year of high school, I didn't even really know how to strap up pads. Like, I didn't know how to buckle up a pad, how to probably put on a helmet or anything. So I had no clue, you know, that I could end up, you know, being a USC Trojan and playing football for the USC Trojans. I'd always been a baseball player growing up, and I loved basketball. I always played basketball growing up, but I always thought, you know, my thing was gonna be baseball. I knew I was, you know, talented in the baseball world, but yeah, you know, it was really crazy. Just to see, you know, how much people believed in me, because like, even just my parents, like we all thought I had talent, but it was really a blessing to be able to see the way people believed in me, and you know, people believed in me early, which was crazy to me, because like before I even stepped foot on a high school campus, like I said, before I had ever played a down of actual football, Arizona State believed in me enough to offer me, just solely based off of a 7-on-7 tournament. And like I said, I had no clue, you know, what I what I was getting into.
Ready, set. Use French fries to go. Yeah, oil from French fries. Turn yesterday's leftovers into today's fuel. More power, lower emissions. 76 renewable diesel fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
Belief's a powerful thing.
It is.
Like, it gets asked often. We've done it here at 11 a lot. We've asked the quarterbacks, where's confidence come from? And there's a variety of answers. But ultimately, at the core of it, one might argue, a psychologist would argue, sports psychologists would say, confidence comes from self-talk. I wonder for you, like, what's your self-talk like now for a guy who didn't play until he's a freshman, but had a lot of people breathing positive psychology, positive affirmations, belief into him as a competitor?
Yeah, that's one thing that I've really had to learn about myself is growing up, I always fed off of other people's opinions and what other people were gonna say about me, how other people perceived me. And I feel like even throughout, last year, I was getting caught up in this world of how other people were viewing me. And I think that hurt me a lot at points. I think that really affected my confidence. It affected my belief in myself. And it's been something that I think I've been having to find back because, it happens to everyone, but like once you lose confidence in yourself, it's something that can take a while to get back. But yeah, I've been really focusing on just trying to control what I can control, because I know that I'm talented. I've proven to myself that I'm talented more than I've proven to anyone else, more than what any fans might say, even more than what my parents might say. It all stems from a belief in yourself, and so I've really been trying to reinforce that positive self-talk to myself as opposed to trying to get motivation from what others might say.
Yeah, there's a maturity that just goes with experience, and you weren't immature. It's just in that experience around confidence and having to deal with other people's expectations. It's just a new experience when you get to college. And I love how you just attacked and were aware. Yeah, this is a thing. I wrote a book called 5-Star QB, and we interviewed 50 plus 5-star quarterbacks in history. And the number one thing that came back from all of their answers was that they did not ever ask for the label that came with their ranking. Nobody raised their hand and said, tell me who I am and who I'm supposed to be. But they can navigate that. And I love the fact that you're leaning into the skills necessary, not just physically, but mentally, of how to navigate that so you can go play freely, go compete freely. Man, that's when the best can be flow state. That's when the best can be at the razor's edge of high performance. I'm just so excited for you coming into the season. So I asked before we let you go, like, how are you feeling? Like if you were to take like a vibe test of like, this is how Duce Robinson is walking right now. This is what his self-talk is saying. What would it say?
I'm just excited, man. Like I feel like our team is really coming together. I feel like all of us are maturing into our own right. Miller's insane. Miller's gonna kill it this year. We've got a whole room of just uberly talented receivers. So being a part of that room is gonna be crazy fun. And hopefully being a leader of that room too is really just gonna it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I'm just really excited for this season, both on the football side and then obviously as we go into baseball season as well. I'm just really excited.
I love that. I gotta ask you, BMW, Big Mike Williams comes on back of the staff. I can remember watching him at Rose Bowls. Of course, tracking him, we kind of played around the same time. But when I came to SC as a coach, I was coaching Dwayne and Steve Smith, those guys were there. But the legend of Big Mike Williams reigned supreme. What has it been like to be around him?
Man, he's a great guy. Just being able to pick his brain ask him about, certain things that he did while he was here, or while, when he was at SC, how he was so successful. It's been great. He's been an absolutely great resource to have around, and be able to talk to him.
I bet. All right, I got a great story for you about him. So back in the day, we're there. He was recruited by Lane Kiffin out of South Florida, as you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a recruiting meeting. We had him like every Wednesday or so. We say, I want to put on a tape of this wideout. And he kind of just downplays it. And he throws in his high school tape. And he's like, what do you guys think? And he's asking all around the room, like, what do they think about this film? Mike wasn't the recruit that you were. He wasn't the recruit that Zachariah Branch was. Like, he wasn't as big of a recruit as the type of player that he eventually became. And some of the guys were like, yeah, he's good. But they was kind of like critiquing his game. And he pops it out and he goes, that was Mike Williams, like the multiple All-American. You guys don't know anything. It was so funny, man. Like,
man, it really just shows you yeah, it's a blessing to be, highly recruited, highly ranked. Like all that stuff is a blessing, but no one really knows anything about anything. Like that's something I've learned is like no matter what anyone says, no one knows anything about anything. And yeah, I might have been highly recruited coming out of high school, but that means nothing when I stepped foot on the USC's campus. Every single person was highly recruited out of high school. You're just another guy. You're just a little freshman that they want to pick on. And so that's been something that's been really cool too. Is just being able to see and experience that too. Like everyone's the guy there, and so you have to elevate yourself because you're trying to become the guy of the guys. And so, it's challenged me to find, ways to better myself every single day because you can never be comfortable. You can never be complacent. There's, like I said, our receiver room is uberly talented. And so, we're all pushing each other each and every day too, to be the best versions of ourselves.
No. I'll leave you with a story because I think it's worthwhile sharing. So if you looked up the word compete on your phone right now, or anybody watching or listening did, it would say to strive against. You beat you beat me, our team beats your team beats my team. But if you scroll down further, the Latin root of the word would be to strive together. And I think it's really fascinating because like the origin of the English language, the Latin root of the word is to compete together, strive together.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the course of time, it became like me versus you versus me. And I just share that of like, I know SC fans are clamoring for like, get back to that era where they were rolling. I don't know if that stretch will ever happen in the history of college football. But I do know that the number one unifying principle in that era was that team that was like your receiving room at every position, strove together. It was a beautiful thing where practices were so competitive that when they got there, it was like, I'm going to celebrate Jacoby Lane. I can't wait till you get yours. I'm going to go get mine. And if I don't, whatever, I'm going to run block. It was just this beautiful display of regard for the craft and respect for the craft.
Absolutely.
And the word competing. And I don't know, I hear guys say competing now, and I'm going to prove the haters wrong. I'm just like, dude, prove yourself right. Like, go do it together.
Absolutely. Like
I can't wait for you, man.
It all starts with yourself.
Yeah.
It all starts with yourself.
It's the Afterglow. I'm Yogi Roth. Welcome back. That was Duce Robinson, presented by our founding partner, 76. This is the time where Jim Thornby and I discuss the conversation we just had. What did we learn? What do we wish we asked? So, Jim, Duce Robinson, what do you think?
It was cool because one of the things, once we were done with it, I talked to him. I told him I was disappointed because, in my previous life, as working for the Pac-12, doing not only just as football communications, but also as baseball communications. So I told him I was disappointed I didn't get to see him play in the Pac-12 tournament last year, the final Pac-12 baseball tournament. But it's cool. I mean, I think back to when I was a teenager and like Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Brian Jordan, these guys that were like true two sport stars, like guys that could do it professionally in both leagues. I don't know how much we're going to see of that, these days, and but I liked in your conversation how you guys talked about that growing up, so the growing up of playing multiple sports and the impact of that.
I love the Brian Jordan reference. I do remember like having his card as a child. Okay, so let's go to some numbers on this. We write about this again in the book 5-Star QB. In 2022, all 8 starting NFL quarterbacks in the second round of the playoffs played multiple sports in high school. Multiple sports. To be exact, they actually played 24 sports combined. That's Matthew Stafford, football, baseball. Tom Brady, football, basketball, baseball. Josh Allen, football, basketball, baseball. Patrick Mahomes, football, basketball, baseball. Jimmy Garoppolo, football, basketball, baseball. Aaron Rodgers, football, basketball, baseball. Joe Burrow, football, basketball, track and field. And Ryan Tannehill, football, basketball, baseball, track and field. In addition, in 2015, there were 128 quarterbacks surveyed in an ESPN article. And at least 122 of them, which is 95%, played at least 2 sports in high school. Nearly 70% played 3 or more. So I just say it to anybody who listens to this, especially the parents, and especially, I don't know, it feels like it's just like a West Coast thing where you have to kind of throw down so early and be like, I'm going to be this. I see it with my own kids, man. Like you've seen it with yours. You have to be an expert in whatever it is. It could be gaming. It could be quarterback play. It could be baseball. And everyone I've talked to, and what I loved about Duce, is he talked about like the neurodiversity of his mind, like how he plays. So when he sees the ball off a bat, much like my college roommate, Larry Fitzgerald, he can sight the ball. Like try just asking anybody to play center field now who's an athlete. Ask a bunch of receivers to play center field. It's nowhere near what it was. Guys struggle with that. Same thing in the ball's coming off the rim and you're getting a rebound. You're trying to get positioning. It's same thing in the red zone. And you're doing the old Stanford jump ball from back in the day to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Like it's just hard when you're not doing that. And I just think, old guys like us could preach it all day, but to hear it from Duce. And again, he spoke to like our whole flag team, 12 guys after a spring football game at SC about playing multiple sports. And I love that he's utilizing his platform in shows like ours and many others where he says, yes, like play, be diverse. So you don't get burned out. The numbers won't lie. I think it's 50% of boys get burned out by the age of 13 and quit. And for girls, it's age 12 in some of the recent studies that I've read. But if you're playing multiple sports, then you're not going to find that burnout. And I don't think that is a thought that is discussed enough. So,
well, I think you just think of the intensity that all these, I remember, when my kids were little, it was like, oh, they're not playing this at 5. And I'm like, yeah, no, like they'll, when they're ready and they want to, not just going to, force them into it, but like the time commitment, the travel commitment, like they were all these travel team, and everything like that. Like it's insane. Like, I don't know how these parents, handle all of this and still like keeping their kids in school. And this is like, we're not talking about in college. We're talking, balancing, classes and we're talking about high school, middle school. I mean, thankfully in elementary, you don't have, the workload of that, but like just the balance that these kids and parents have to all strike, and just, the pressure of all of it. It's insane.
Yeah. The Academy, the American Academy of Pediatrics found that 70% of kids are completely done with sports by the age of 13. And a great deal of that research is attributed to burnout and sports specialization. Not my research, not just an opinion that we have here at Y Option. The American Academy of Pediatrics. This is another one. The National Athletic Trainers Association proposed that a child's age should equal the number of hours he or she should spend in sports training each week. Think of that. So if you're 9, like you should be playing.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a really fascinating conversation. And here's how I look at it from from a coaching lens, when I coach wide receivers, we work at the top of the route way more than we run the full route. I'm trying to save your knees for 10 years down the line. You talk to the real NFL OGs, they do the same thing. They don't run full routes. They can't handle that type of damage on their bodies. They just can't. So that's like the physical side of it. Let's go to the developmental side of it. I watch soccer, flag, basketball, and all these AAU things. And what's the one common theme? All they do is play games. So where's the skill development? Like, where's the real, true skill development? I can remember talking to the greatest soccer player I ever met is a guy named Jurgen Klinsmann, who was the national team coach at US. He's the Michael Jordan of Germany in soccer, just a monster, right? And he said that once his kid came up to him, who I think plays for the national team or played for the national team, said, I want to play big time soccer. And he goes, okay, you need to like work on skill development. So what did Jurgen do as a kid? He kicked the ball against the garage door thousands of times. So he understood the spin of the ball. I slept with a football until I was 22. Right? I knew the ball and the laces and the leather in a way that was just unique. Like, you have to work on the skill development, jugs machine, catching it. Like, it's like Tony Romo. I did an interview with him once. You can find online a million years ago, where he talked about growing up. I think it was in Illinois, in a Midwest state, and it was so snowy outside. He went in his basement and he would practice throwing it at pillows, different corners of the pillow on the couch. That's how he became so dramatically accurate. So I go to the skill development. And Duce Robinson, from just being at practice a week ago at USC, I'm going to call their second game of the season. And we know they have LSU on a Sunday in week 1 of the season on a huge stage. I think his skill development, the little things, the body control, the snatching the ball away, tucking away from pressure, rolling over his front shoulder after he catches the ball and goes to the ground, that's where he's taken his game to a totally different level. I think a part of it is the neuro diversity that he has in his mind because he has played so many sports.
It's crazy. Yeah. He's an easily likable kid. And, I say kid because, as I get older, they feel younger, but, a very likable kid and someone who's pretty easy to root for.
Amen. All right. Well, you're easy to root for. Hopefully Y Option is easy to root for. It has been a blast. We are cooking with gas right now, Jim. We got a lot of cool things happening. We are into really the final week before we're in game week. We have some really powerful content coming out for you. Once we get into week 1 of college football, we're going to release a couple new elements within Y Option. We'll be slow but deliberate with them, and we always want your feedback. It's so fun, Jim. Here I am in East Coast. I'm in the East Coast time zone, right in Michigan, and people are asking me about Y Option. So it's working. We continue to hopefully have thoughtful dialogue around the sport of college football through the lens of the West Coast. So for the Michigan State fans listening today, be really proud of where your program is. I'll give a deep dive on that on my newsletter over the weekend of how Jonathan Smith has built this thing up. Also about Michigan, the rival, of course, one of the rivals of Michigan State, and also a recap from being in Jim's old stomping grounds, Tucson.
The old Pueblo.
That's right. So I hope you enjoyed this week with Khalil Tate and our most recent interview with Duce Robinson, all presented by our founding partner, 76. I'm back on the road, and before you know it, we'll be in game week. Lots of love. Peace.